Howdy, welcome to the Maze MasterCast. I'm your host, Ben Wiggins. It is a beautiful day in Aggie land, and we are fired up for today's discussion. We welcome Chris Buckner to the show. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you
Chris,
so much for having me.
Or Buck, if you called yourself Buck earlier.
Buck or Chris. It doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah.
I've gone by Buck since I was like in second grade, and my dad calls me Buck, which is weird because his last name is Buckner, but I'll roll with it. You can call me Buck.
All right.
Let's do it.
I look forward to it. What is Mainline?
So Mainline is an esports software company. Specifically in the college space, we license our software so that college programs can run their esports programs, which are really becoming a thing. I think there's something about 400 universities offer scholarships for gaming. And so we are the end-to-end solution that a college can use for like rec, intramural, and you sign up, you build your team, you go through the bracketing. It's a single elimination, double elimination, round robin. We handle all of that for the schools.
So it's more event side than program organizational side,
I would say
or
it's like
both?
Tournament organization and mostly digital, even though we do handle some broadcast and production for like our big partners. Like we've run the Big 12. We ran the official Madden League with EA in the college space. And then we actually work with like really big brands like Bud Light, Seltzer, and Chick-fil-A, and we run theirs because it's a white labeled software. So when a user gets on, they think it's A&M's, they think it's Chick-fil-A's, they think it's Bud Light Seltzer. So we kind of handle that so that they can then go and resell it to sponsors.
Where did this idea come from to focus primarily on the collegiate?
Accident. I started the company in 2017 as a subsidiary of my first company, and we went and acqui-hired a company out of South Carolina that was running these tournaments for a game title called PUBG, which at the time was like still in beta. And we were just running it kind of for fun, and we knew the publishers, and then PUBG blew up that year. And I mean, big time.
Yeah.
And PUBG for everybody was the Fortnite before Fortnite, essentially. And so we all of a sudden became the biggest North American PUBG tournament site. Yeah. And then ESPN came to us, and they were like, hey, why don't you guys help us run what's called the ESPN Collegiate Esports Championship? Well, we had no right even being in that conversation. So we signed this deal. It's an 8-week TV show out of our studios in Houston, and I can't believe it worked. I mean, we were faking it till we make it. And at the end, I was like, man, if ESPN's going to get into the college space this hard and heavy in esports, there is no like continuity in the space when it comes to schools versus schools. And so we had this internal platform that we white labeled, and I came to A&M, and I went to the athletic department, and I was like, hey, y'all should pilot our software and run an esports tournament on campus, and then get Learfield, IMG, and multimedia rights holder to sell it. And we did that, and then within a year, we had 100% of the Division I market locked up because, especially with COVID, we became their digital stadium that they could sell advertisements in. So it was a lot of happy accidents, I guess, is like how we saw that play out.
Where does that sit now?
Well, it's kind of a mess because the college space is still undefined when it comes to esports. And so some schools are running it out of rec or student activities or intramurals or a varsity program or athletics. Even though we're agnostic, none of the schools are really working with the multimedia rights holders, and they were the ones that were signing the contracts. So they would pay for it to put it into the schools. So then the schools, after they left the multimedia rights holders in esports, I know I'm getting really in the weeds, they came back to us and they were like, let's just do it directly with you. And I said, great. And they said, but we're not going to pay you. And I was like, oh, okay. So then we had to change our revenue model to all sponsorships. So we're in that huge transition now. So still there, still kind of the biggest collegiate esports company.
And just for clarity, the multimedia rights holder was the publisher, or
multimedia rights holder was like a Learfield, Playfly, JMI out front. They're the ones that like license from A&M the logo mark, and then it's their job to resell it. So in stadium, on air, whatever it might be. The publishers, they actually own the ball, so they get to tell everybody like, oh, nope, sorry, stop. So it would be like if the NFL actually owned the game of football. The publishers have ultimate command in esports, so it makes it very, very difficult because everything has to run through them, and they can just say yes or no to anything.
True, but on the other hand, you can say, if a publisher's being difficult enough, you can just say, you know what, we don't want to play your game anymore.
Sure, but when you're Riot or you're Blizzard, Activision, they say, well, okay, which has happened a lot of times. We're very fortunate. our company works directly with the publishers, and we don't infringe on their intercollegiate. We do what's called intra, meaning school by school by school. Mm-hmm. So they kind of like what we're doing because we're more of like a grassroots, helping them grow club programs, and we're white labeled, so it looks like it's theirs.
Right.
Whereas there's tons of third-party tournament organizers out there, and they have to like sign third-party licensing agreements. It's a big whole thing, but we get to sidestep it.
Okay, so you were handling some of the like the varsity competitions.
Yeah. When we ran leagues, that was varsity based. When we run school, it's open to the whole student body. It's more about like community, fan engagement, fun. Our prize pools at schools is like, here's a $50 gift card to Taco Bell, and kids go bananas. Yeah, whereas a league is like, here's $100,000 in scholarships. Like, it's that level of difference.
I see.
Yeah.
In your opinion, what makes business work? Like, what have you learned from this that makes you say, this idea can be successful right now, that idea's time has not yet come? This, like, what's the secret sauce that makes you go, this one? Yeah,
well, timing is a lot of this, and I hate saying luck, but it is like the opportunity meets timing meets hard work, whatever that equation is. When I've launched my first two companies, my first company was way too early in the space. It was a sports social media application, which sounds kind of asinine looking back on it, but when we pivoted, we were just too early, even though we did all right. On Mainline, the second company in the esports space, I'd say we're almost too early again because there's no definition in the space. So a lot of times it's based off of like this weird timing where you recognize, for instance, I haven't played a video game since probably 2011, 2012 when the last college football was out. And I just remember, this is a true story, I hope I don't get in trouble. I was sitting on the couch with my friend watching ESPN, and a Call of Duty game came on ESPN2. And this is all the way back in 2015. I mean, I wasn't the first person to do this, but when it came on, I was like, oh my gosh, that's going to be huge. Someday I should probably find a way to fit my company into esports. And 2 years later, we did just that. We created a subsidiary and launched. But I struggle with this because some people will say, like, you fake it till you make it, right? Like, whatever it takes, get it done as a new business. Mm-hmm. Whereas other people will say, like, no, concentrate, find product market fit, and don't really waver too much because you'll get distracted. I was definitely on the side of, like, let's get as distracted as possible and just fake it. So, I struggle a lot with starting new businesses because I don't have like a cutthroat bone in my body. So when people ask like, what makes it work? I'm like, well, be super friendly. And then everybody wants to work with you. At some point that doesn't work. But on the other hand, sometimes people tend to like the honesty and those types of things. So timing, opportunity, hard work, awesome team. That's about 60 different pieces to the equation. So that wasn't very helpful, probably. No, I think some of those were counterintuitive to each other.
Well, it's super helpful in one respect in that there's a tension between sort of share everything with everyone.
Yes.
And don't share anything with anyone.
Yep.
And where is and businesses, by the way, have made it work at both ends of that spectrum.
Yep.
And at where everybody's going to fall depends probably a lot on market, how new the market is. What the revenue models are, all of that sort of thing. So,
well, it's funny. I was actually here when I was starting my first company, and I was hesitant to share my idea at the time, and it was still, an early thought process stage. And this is where I learned, like, no, you share as much as you possibly can because you never know what connections you're going to meet, and that ended up paying off significantly. However, I would say as you get later in your business and you have a product that you're working with certain people, I always overshare, always. And it has come back to bite my butt. But that was later on in the process. At the beginning, I think you share as much as you can because you never know, an investor might be like, oh, hang on, I like that idea. And the truth is, nobody really wants to turn and say, like, if you tell me an idea right now, not very many people are like, oh, I'm going to go take that and try to start it. You've already done all the work, right, to get it there. Now, if you're talking to some monster, private equity venture capital fund and they have a competing company and you're talking to them, maybe don't share everything about your company because they have the resources at that time in the space that they could replicate some of your business model. So I think there's a time period where you have to be a little bit more careful, but at the beginning, I tell everybody share.
Yeah, in Hollywood, the ever like the concern for all, especially for young writers, is the studio is going to steal my idea. My old boss would say to young writers all the time, nobody wants to steal your idea.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to steal your idea, especially if it is unexecuted,
Yeah.
because the execution is what's going to make this work. Like there is no concept good enough for an executive to say, I'm going to steal that log line. Like it doesn't exist. I mean, the closest thing is probably something like the Hunger Games that is like so high concept that you kind of almost can't screw it up. So yeah, the earlier stage you are, I agree with you, the more it pays to just share everything with everyone. And once you've kind of developed more, like once your core competencies have gotten more specific, like the more specific they are, I think the less you want to share. But the less specific they are, the more you just want to like talk to everybody about everything and try to like some of what we've done is try to find competitors. And unfortunately, like, yeah, I will talk to somebody from time to time that'll say, yeah, I found somebody who does exactly what you guys are doing. And I'm like, oh, that's great. I go look and it's not even in the same neighborhood.
Well, it's funny. So I have like a few early stage startup, like make sure when you're building your team from the very beginning that your co-founders or at least your first employees, like clearly defined roles, because that's important. Make sure you share like the same, work ethic, business acumen to some extent, right? But when you are getting into the space of like meeting with people, I do say like, before you do anything else, go do competitive analysis, right? And it's not a bad thing when you find a competitor that's doing what you're doing, because the truth is I could say, looking around this room, I could be like, well, I'm going to invent a company that rolls up the lines for the mics automatically or whatever. And there might be 10 companies out there that do that. As long as there's still opportunity, they don't have a monopoly or market control. You can still get in there. It's just make sure you know what's there, because my first company, I was so foolish that I just launched it, and then there were 5 direct competitors. I mean, direct. So like a year and a half in, we had to pivot because we were just getting obliterated by people who had already been established in the market. But I was just young and being like, I'm going to start a company, and I did. But I learned the hard way of not doing any competitive research. We probably wasted a few months of work because we had to pivot.
So that was FanReact.
Yeah, FanReact was my first company. Yeah, exactly. That was, I launched this sports social media application, and I was like, oh my God, like kind of a new age Bleacher Report, but for every single sport, all the way down to like your college or your high school soccer team. And that was the idea. I didn't realize though, there's got to be content on there or else people aren't coming.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So what we did there was we pivoted to what we call the social CMS, and we started licensing the product out to our clients, and it took off like real quick. So they got to own their own social or forum or media site through a white labeled process. That was FanReact.
How did the process of that business shape your views on life?
Well, that one was, I learned a lot of, I learned an infinite amount of what not to do. I was brand new to the idea of fundraising, and I just got obliterated on valuations, right? Like I just didn't know any better at the time. And I also started my process of getting maybe a little bit jaded about the business side of things when it came to like negotiations, when it came to those types of discussions, whether we were working with like enterprise level clients or even local clients, is like, again, I'd like to overshare. And I just found that a lot of times in those instances, it kind of came back to bite me in the butt a little bit with them, where they knew they could negotiate pretty hard on me. So that first company, I learned what not to do when it comes to fundraising. I learned how important your team is. I never was like a big culture guy at the beginning, where I was like, no, the culture will come as the company grows. All of a sudden we got to 55 employees, and our culture was a mess, like just a mess. So I learned in that process, thankfully, because of a couple employees, just how important culture is. So I like making the joke that I am a pro at telling people what not to do. I'm not very good at telling people what to do, but I can tell them like, here's what you don't do. Make sure you're paying attention to this when you're going through contracts. Make sure you're paying attention to this. So that's where I learned the most, was in that whole process.
And when you say getting obliterated on valuations, as you did a moment ago, so that's someone does some like back of the envelope math and says, yeah, here's what I think your company's worth. I'm going to invest this much, get this much, and then you discover that's 10 times what they really should have gotten for that amount of investment. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Or is it something else?
Well, I mean, I'll tell the story, and I learned a lot from it, and I still love these investors, but we were kicking major butt. I think we at the time had ESPN and 70% of the Division I market already secured. And I was getting ready to go raise for a little bit more growth capital. And my current investors, who a lot of them are really, really amazing people, they said, no, you cannot afford to spend your time going and raise. We have all the money you'll need. Keep running the business, keep growing it. We'll get you whatever you need money-wise. Oh. Well, as time went on and we were, running out of our runway, I went back to say, hey, need this money because we're continuing to grow. And they were like, well, that's fine, but you didn't go get anybody to kind of come in. And I was like, well, you told me not to go do my roadshow.
Yeah.
And so they put preferences on their investment. And what preferences do is, let's say you put in $5, they would put a 2x preference, meaning upon sale, it becomes $10 immediately. And in the startup space, that's not common. In private equity, it's common. I know I'm getting in the weeds, but it was so bad that at a certain point, as a CEO and co-founder, I would have had to have sold for millions and millions and millions of dollars before I even saw $1 kind of like come back officially, because they had set so many preferences, meaning we had to sell for this much. They got the first money out, and then my stuff kind of kicked in. So it was a huge learning process that, and it was a detriment to the company. I mean, at times the key management would say, well, what's our incentive? We're getting, we're working 100-hour weeks, and we know that those preferences are sitting there. So thankfully our board and our investors kind of wised up and said, yeah, you know what, this isn't right to do to management. And so they recapped the entire company and gave a large amount back to management. But yeah, I mean, like, I didn't know any better. I would have sold my first company for a Snickers bar at that time. I just didn't know any better, and I wasn't driven by money. I just wanted to like grow this really cool idea that we had. And then that came back to bite me a little bit.
How is being vulnerable an advantage in business? You've talked a lot about kind of how much to share and that you like to share a lot. Like, where do you feel like the best things are captured?
Yeah, well, when you cry, people feel bad for you, and
that's not true.
No, I am a very vulnerable person because of my passion for what we do, and I think where it really helps, vulnerability really helps with your reputation in the space. So in esports, so my Mainline, I had a reputation across the publishers, the pro orgs, the other leagues that are in the space as like, well, if there's one thing that Mainline does with Chris is always going to be crazy honest. He's always going to ask for permission, not forgiveness. I was always very vulnerable in the sense of like telling people, here's where we stand, where do you stand? And it's funny because I would say like 50% of our growth over the years was directly a result of like my vulnerability to these people. They knew exactly what they were getting in partnership with me. And then the other 50% was in my vulnerability. Other people in the space took it as like a weakness. And so they were able to kind of like sneak in and do deals. And that's the part that you're weighing is like, how vulnerable do you want to be? But I'm positive that for the rest of my life, I want to keep that vulnerability because I think the reputations that you make will far supersede any type of like singular deal you might get by somebody else might steal from you by being vulnerable.
You've talked a little bit about rejection and the struggle with rejection. You want to share a little bit more about that here?
Well, I'm not a competitive person in the normal sense of like when I'm playing 42 at the Chicken, I don't really give a crap if I lose. If I'm playing a pickup, what do you play 42?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't really get that competitive. If I'm playing pickup basketball, I definitely don't. I'm the first guy to be like, okay, fine, wasn't a foul. I don't really care. But in business,
when you know that the game has ground to a halt when somebody like there's a discussion about a foul when somebody puts the ball under their arm,
and they do this like
like they're walking toward each other, and then like somebody's hand will go up in the air, and then you're like, we're gonna be here for a while, guys. Can we just play the freaking game?
Well, yeah, and I'm so bad at basketball that I can't even, I'm not even allowed to be competitive in it. But when it came to business, my competitiveness came out when people were like, that's not a good idea, meaning the idea, right? Mm-hmm. Or I'm not investing in that because of this reason or whatever, which that's okay. It was just more like, well, I'll show you. It became that a lot, which was, okay, no problem, but I'm going to show you. Like, we are going to be the best. We're going to be the biggest. Mm-hmm. And I do like that side of the competitiveness and the drive of getting rejected is, it really is a driver. If everything went like perfectly as planned and you never had rejection, you're not going to challenge yourself. I started my first company because I kept getting rejected by Facebook. I was like trying to work in this role at Facebook where you're a liaison between ad agencies and Facebook. And I went through like 9 interviews and got rejected. And at that point I was just like, I'm going to do this myself. I had no idea what I was doing. So I think rejection can lead to a lot of like really, really great things. Both, hey, maybe you'll start your own company, or maybe rejection will drive you in your own company to like make changes and kind of win down the road.
Yeah, cut to 8 years from now, your cap is bigger than Facebook's.
Yeah,
following like iOS 14 and 16 and so forth.
For sure.
Zuckerberg's asking you for a job. What is Pokatok other than a really fun word?
Yeah, so Pokatok, the word comes from, it's the first ball sport ever in Mesoamerica. It was a game where you had to put a ball through a hoop, but you weren't allowed to use your head or your hands or your feet. So think about that. It was like shoulders, body, hip. And if you lost, like sometimes it was done with human skulls, which I know is really, really dark. But what we're trying to do is, Miami has crypto. Atlanta has fintech. You could say Boston has medtech. Houston's doing a good job there too. You've got obviously Silicon Valley and everything they do. Nobody has tried to say like, well, we're going to be sports and sports tech. And Houston has kind of like everything you would need in order for it to be like the sports capital of the country. And so we came up with this idea to launch the largest sports festival in the world in Q3 of 2023. So quite a ways away. Leveraging the relationships that we've built, me and my founders. And it's a really cool idea. But it's also stemmed from the fact that we were working with the co-founders of South by Southwest, and they said, do not make this a one-week event. Make it a year-long kind of event, if you will, with media and content and maybe small events that lead up to this world fair of sports. And so in February, we started this new company, and we built our team in order to get us all the way through to the very first festival. And we're partnering with the city of Houston, whether it's a Houston First, Greater Houston Partnership, all of them are saying, what do you need from a support perspective, which is really, really cool. Yeah. So, we'll start in, like I said, Q3 of 2023 and try to bring, it will have a small B2B focus, meaning new technologies, innovation, founders, and investors. But the core of it will be across 6 different pillars. I'll use the 5 that we for sure are going to do, which is sports tech, esports, health and wellness, the business side of tech like media, sports media. And then the last will be like culture, diversity, and sports. And so that's what we're going to do. And we're going to be pretty aggressive about it because in Houston, even the high net worth individuals and family offices are looking for something that kind of repositions Houston. I mean, it's been built off of oil and gas and energy, and that's fantastic. But can we also make it a sports capital?
Will the games be played with human skulls?
No human skulls. Although we might sacrifice somebody at the we thought about the tagline being Pokatok, deadly serious about sports, and then we were like, that could probably backfire pretty quickly in the future.
That might go a little far.
But one of the coolest things that we have done under Pokatok is we have what's called Pokatok Labs, which is a scale-up program, and we have 5 companies that are in our first cohort. Mm-hmm. That's wrapping up actually in the next couple of weeks, and it's sports tech, whether that's hardware and software. But we were able to go get these amazing companies. So they have product market fit, over $1 million in revenue. Like I said, they focus in sports tech. And just rock star companies, and we don't take ownership and we don't make them pay, so it's kind of easy. I make that joke all the time. Somebody's like, these companies are legit. How did you get them in a incognito mode scale-up program? I'm like, well, don't pay us or anything. We're trying to build the largest sports network so that we can throw the largest sports festival. But that Pokatok Labs has been just a way, way, way bigger success than we ever imagined already. So it's fun, a lot of fun.
Yeah. How can I help? How can we help?
Well, the A&M's doing a good job with entrepreneurship. Obviously, the support that they have are giving in the space. I know the university is very seriously looking at kind of this idea of a venture capital fund more in the tech space rather than concentrating on oil and gas, because that is going to be important moving forward for A&M students, diversify that. But yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, if you got any companies that are in the sports space, please, God, let me know. If you have any students that are interested in this idea of a large festival, I mean, we'll need 700 volunteers by October of next year. But we really just kind of want to keep supporting and showcasing startups, whether that's in Houston, whether that's in Texas in general, or whether that's worldwide. We actually have companies that have applied that are worldwide. So no, I mean, just connections in the sports and sports network for sure.
Fantastic. Yeah, would love to talk a little bit further about that. What's next for you personally?
It's funny. We were just joking about this. Work-life balance would be such a cool idea. It doesn't exist, but I am trying to get much, much better about it. I tend to put like my entire heart and soul into the jobs that I do, to the point where it's kind of like sometimes I just need to chill out a little bit. Like, I don't vacation well. When I go on vacation, I work the whole time and I get anxiety about it. And so trying to grow a little bit in that idea of it is okay that you don't have to be on at every second of the day. So I think picking up some hobbies from a personal standpoint, it's I want to learn play piano really bad, and I play really cruddy guitar, and but I want to learn how to play piano, and I want to travel a lot more. I know I'm getting again in the weeds, but I have like all these points that I've accrued over the years through the businesses, multiple businesses. And I've actually, this is a true story, I've never once used a single point. I feel like I'm hoarding those. Like, no, I'm not going to use that yet. And now I have this opportunity to like travel a whole lot because of the way that's
you can now go to the moon.
I can go. I found out I can do the whole huts over in Fiji or wherever that is, Bora Bora. But I'm like, I married my job, so I'm still a single dude. And it's like, how miserable would that be to just be in a hut, like by yourself in Fiji? What are you doing on a hut in a hut in Fiji by yourself? So traveling, probably more.
Yes, that sounds great. And the fact that like I feel your pain from the place of asking that question, because I feel like many people listening to this episode are going to be saying, are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
What will you be doing by yourself in a hut in Fiji is relaxing by yourself in a hut in Fiji. And you and I are both thinking, no, that's not what that would look like.
No, that sounds miserable. I stay, my favorite place is a place in Maine called Camden. And I go every year, and I go by myself, and I stay in this cabin on this lake called Lake McGunnicook. And while it's amazing, and it's the most beautiful place in the world to me, I still like always get like anxiety, and I find myself being like, well, I have to work or else somebody's going to get mad at me. It's like, well, it's your company. Yeah. Okay. I just feel like I'm missing out.
Wait, talk about that.
Well, first of all, you always have a board, right? Once you take on money, you have your board. But I just always have had the idea of I want my employees to know that like I will always be trying the hardest I possibly can. So like even when I travel, I want them to know, hey, I'll handle anything you need. Call me, text me, do whatever.
Yeah.
And this last, I traveled. I'll tell a quick story because I think it's amazing. I went to Portland, Maine, a couple weeks ago to go see Bon Iver. He's my favorite artist. Okay. And my employees were like, "Turn off your phone. Like, turn it off. Don't even think about it." So I did, and still stressful. But I got to be in the moment, and we went to a bar, and random bar on the water in Portland. Nobody was even in the bar.
You and Bon Iver?
Me and my best friend, and Bon Iver was sitting at the bar by himself. And I was like, oh my God. And we sat down and we got to talk with him for an hour. What? And I had my phone turned off, so I didn't get to take a picture. But my buddy did ask him like, hey, can we take a picture? But it was cool. It was one of those first times in a long time, probably 6 years, that I tried to just like be in the moment a little bit more. I know I'm getting deep here. It's like
No, this is good.
Yeah, it all started in 1989. No, it's going all the way back to where this all stems from.
You and Taylor Swift.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We share the same birthday, by the way.
Really?
December 13th.
Huh.
Yeah, we're not exclusive, but we're dating.
Be careful. She might write a song about
yeah,
you.
she might. God willing. God, that'd be awesome.
Well, speaking of that, at the other end of the spectrum anyway, any good bull for anyone?
Well, yeah, I'm part of this group in Houston called Entrepreneurs Anonymous, which is a group of guys and gals that right now it is only guys, but we want to find some women that would want to join our crazy group. It's supposed to be a play on Alcoholics Anonymous, where we're all just like addicted to entrepreneurship, starting new stuff, whatever it might be. But there's a guy, I'm sure y'all have even heard of him. His name is Mike Francis. He has a company called Nanotech and NanoShield. Yeah. He's in our organization, and he's kicking butt. Huge Aggie, massive Aggie. Works not only a lot with McFerrin and Mays, but he also works with at the university, the foundation. So from a good bull perspective, that guy's a rock star, and I think he's going to do some not only amazing things with his company, but he cares about A&M, the venture capital side of like supporting Aggie-owned businesses maybe more than anybody I've ever met. So that would be my good bull.
That's great, man. Good bull to him, and good bull to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh
today,
my gosh,
Mark.
yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
The time.
You got it.